All right. So we got Miss Stephanie in the building.
Yes.
Thank you for being here. Thank you.
Of course. I believe in this.
You know what? I believe in it.
You believe in it too?
No, but I really appreciate you being here. We were just talking about this.
Yeah.
It's so crazy that it's like, look at where we are now. To be honest, I had no idea I'd be doing something like this. But
true, same here.
But what's even cooler is that I have somebody like you here who is, I've known for a while, so I feel like I've got a little bit of, a little advantage. It's cool that we have a connection already. But you're pretty big time. I just want you to know that. That's all I say. It's hilarious. That's hilarious. So, well, first off, I want to just kind of name off some things that are off the top of my head that you are killing it, or you've done, you're part of. And then, you chime in.
All right.
Okay, so I'm doing this. Number one, you're obviously, you're part of one church, but under what capacity?
So one of the associate pastors at one church.
Yeah. I was going to say pastor, but I was like, okay, I know she is, but what kind? Okay.
Yeah.
That's good. And for how long?
It's been about 2 years. Well, yeah, like 2 years now. Yeah.
2 years. By the way, we got a lot to talk about.
We do.
Okay, so pastor, associate pastor at one church, which is a very well-known church.
Yeah, and recently we're not under the Potter's House. And so it's called the Potter's House at 1LA. So, people know the Potter's House, Bishop Jakes. Yeah. So we're under the Potter's House now. It's just the transition happened very recent.
I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah.
Because I saw some flyers for that. I think last week. Was he visiting?
So he did come because the day it was made official, they had this trio effect. So Bishop Jakes was preaching at the LA location.
Oh, they were just killing it.
Yeah, and then the senior pastors, so my pastors, Pastor Terry Roberts and Sarah Jakes Roberts. So he was at the location in Denver. She was in Dallas, and so it was just this beautiful thing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, how cool. So it's becoming one big conglomerate.
Yep.
This big mega. Yeah. That's cool. So what does that even mean? So what does it mean that they're now under the Potter House umbrella?
It's more of a covering and just like that foundational establishment, because the church had been, standing by itself. Like the senior pastor, who I call my spiritual father, it was a church he founded initially. And so it's been this independent entity. And so connecting it to the Potter's House just gives it this, new level of structure and just a foundational,
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow, that's so cool. That's so cool.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're an associate pastor.
Yeah.
Big time associate pastor. And then you are an author.
Yes.
This isn't your only piece of writing.
In terms of published material, so this is my
so
first book.
See it.
Hey,
this is the close
right
up here.
Yeah. Come out right here.
Yep. Yep.
All right. But in terms of published material, this is my first book. I'm working on my second one, and that comes out April 2018.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so this one is called Moving Forward.
Yep.
And what would you say this is about for you?
For me, it was really a challenge to write that book, because when the time I was writing it, I was in a place in my life that I didn't feel like I could write a book talking about moving forward, because there were things happening, but I didn't feel that progression in life. And so when I'm writing a book called Moving Forward, so for me, it spoke so much to me because I was writing what was teaching myself. And so that's why I really believe in the book, because it dealt with so many different areas, and it was things that was key for me to see, okay, what are the areas that I need to be better in, or what are the things I need to do differently?
Right.
And so it wasn't, and that's why I talk about in the book, it was not about me telling people these are the things I've, figured out. It really taught me, and then I was able to write it.
Yeah. And I think too, there's something inside of writing from that perspective.
Yeah.
Right? That perspective of, hey, I'm figuring it out too.
Yeah.
It's not me trying to be, I'm the boss. I know what to do.
And I love staying in that place, whether it's writing, preaching, anything, because it gives us this room to still grow. Like, I believe the best learners are people that always ask questions. And if we ever reach a place in life where we think that, I figured it out, so let me teach you, then we can't grow, because then we've figured everything out. But if we're always asking ourselves questions, how can we do better at this? How can we do better at that? Even when you're skilled in something, it's still good to give room to teach yourself, to truly teach other people. So you're not having people meet you at your capacity, but they can go beyond what you've accomplished in life.
Wow. Yeah. And it becomes like a passing on of the torch of sorts, like more like that.
And for them to do better and greater than you, because it's not just about, well, this is it right here.
Oh, that's so cool. Yeah. And I try my best to be in that position.
Yeah.
Like if I'm ever talking, because I do public speaking as well, but it's like, I tell people all the time, I'll give a piece of knowledge or some sort of wisdom, and I'll say, hey, I'm talking to myself too.
Yeah.
Like, I'm still figuring it out. I'm still trying to,
Yeah.
And there's a beauty in it. There's humility to that.
Yeah, very true.
Which is so key. I think it's just
Very
so
true.
key. Oh man. Okay. All right. So we're about to go in. Okay. All right. So now you've done this book.
Yeah.
And I could ask you a million. We could go on a tangent and go straight into that. But you've accomplished even more on top of that. Like, you've done even more. And I got the honor to go to your screening, right? And I was gonna say this before we were shooting. I was like, okay, let me wait. I was like, I just want you to know, like, when I saw you speaking, because it was after the movie, we saw the movie. And then you went up there and you explained like how you came about, how it came about for you.
Yeah.
And then also what it means to you and what your vision is.
Yeah.
And just to see you speak, I had Kim beside me. She was right beside me, and she was like, I just got the chills. Like, but just to see you speak, I was like, oh my God. Like I've known you since you were, I don't know,
long time,
19, 20 or something like that. Yeah. So it's just so crazy. So I would love for you to talk about like what you're up to now. I mean, you just did that. That's kind of like your fresh project. But I'd love for you to talk about that too.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously we did the short film, Stop Sign, about spousal rape, bringing not just awareness to spousal rape, but through the film. Actually, we're going to do this through the feature film. So right now we're working on the script for the feature film. The short film itself, it sparked a lot of questions. I think from just this circle of maybe have you influencers that are talking about the film and talking about how common it is, but it's not really being spoken about. And my goal with the film, and that's why it's beautiful to see that's the conversations that's happening right. It was not just to talk about spousal rape, but it was also to talk about rape when the abuser is someone known by the victim, which is, obviously has a higher percentage than when it's by a stranger. But to talk about it even from the place of how do you get justice without the legal system? Because a lot of times people don't. The legal system is not always in favor of the women. And with the feature film, what we're looking at is we're going to talk about slut shaming. When a woman comes up after years of maybe the incident that's happened, and people always have these questions like, why didn't you say anything? Why didn't you say anything? And even in the film with spousal rape, it's been occurring for a while. But it took something to trigger her, which was her daughter, to start talking about it. But we're not, the whole, the goal of the movie is not to talk about justice from the legal system, because we will highlight the flaws in that. But to speak about it from a woman or a man can find justice within themselves and grow out of that. Yesterday, I got, someone sent me like a private message on Instagram, and it was one sentence. I was gang raped. It was my fault. That was it. I was like, wait, what? And so I write her back. I'm like, what are you talking? It would never be your fault. No matter what the incident is, never going to be your fault. And people don't understand how hard it is for anyone that has been sexually violated to speak up. So she's confiding in someone she's never met, and just someone that she could see from a distance and say, maybe I could share this story with you. and literally at the verge, like talking with her today, she was saying how she was writing her letters to her family because she is at the verge of committing suicide because this just happened.
Oh,
And the story, it was by her friend who and his friends. And so it is such I mean the mentality behind it, and that's even why with the film it covers so many areas, because what makes it funny for a group of men who are friends or associates with an individual to do that and film it and make fun of it. So there's such a flaw behind the mentality. So I'm excited for the film. It's called Stop Sign, and Stop Sign itself is a metaphor for just that point of awareness. Like when you hit a stop sign driving, it's not like you actually stop, but you become aware of where the path you're on. And so I'm really excited for the feature film. I'm excited for what's going to happen with that, and so that's what we're working on right now.
So wait, I feel like, do you get messages like that quite a bit?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So
And it's hard. Like this one I got recently almost broke me, because just to hear that, and there are times when someone is just talking just casually about suicide, but from speaking with her, I could tell that she was literally at the verge of, and it was just one glimpse of hope she was looking for. There's this movie out there, it's on Netflix, and it's called 13 Reasons Why.
Oh, yeah.
And it's such a powerful film because it shows people how a lot of times they're just looking for one piece of hope, one thing to keep them alive. And if they couldn't find that, it's done. And in speaking to her, and there was a message she sent me, and that almost brought me to tears. And she was like, "Thank you for even responding, because it's good to see that there's still hope out there." And I knew that's what she was looking for. She was looking for just one thing that was not going to judge her, that was not going to say, "Oh, you shouldn't have done that, you shouldn't have gone out with your friends," or anything like that, but just to be there for her, and just to say, "Hey, give me your number right now. Where are you located? I can come to you, whatever. If you need someone, where are you?" And just to know that I don't need to know you. We're humans. We should be there for each other.
Yeah,
it's just life,
absolutely. Like humanity.
It's humanity. Like,
humanity.
My pastor always says, like, every human should be a humanitarian. Like, you're human. You should care for other people. That's just like the basic, and that's what makes me so passionate behind the film. Just because I think rape is such a violation of a person's world, because this is all we have that we live in. This is us, and it's such a violation, and it shuts a person up. And I'm such an advocate for purpose and who you're called to be on the earth, and owning the voice that God has given you. And rape takes away that power of self, and I think that it violates a person's ability to just own who they are, because it seems like someone has violated your will, your control. And so how do you find the will to be who you're called to be? So I didn't realize how passionate I would be about the film until the process of working on the film.
And then oh God. Okay, so I want you to talk about how it even came to you. Because I remember the story.
No, my whole life.
I feel like every project you've done.
My whole life is really around my faith. Writing this book, even the book came in a dream. And in the dream, I was told to, write a book, and it was called Moving Forward. And I woke up, I was like, oh, no. I don't know what I'm writing. And it was God teaching me what I also needed. So the film, I'm in the car, I'm driving with now my co-writer. And so he had just graduated film school. And so he was talking about graduating film school, not knowing what he wanted to do. And so just I just love seeing people be who they are. So I was like, you know what? Just write a movie and we'll produce it. I didn't know what I was talking about. I was just like, yeah, write anything. We'll figure it out, just so that you can believe in yourself, who you are as a writer. We'll help each other. If I don't know what I'm doing, but I could call people to help you make the film happen. Just write anything, just so that you can manifest what you went to school for. And so we were just talking about that casually, and we hit a red light. Then I hear you're gonna make a movie called Stop Sign. I'm like, who said that?
Whoa, wait a minute.
And so that happens, and I was like, stop sign. I'm like, this is a red light. This is not even a stop sign. Like, what is that? So I get home, And I'm praying about it. I'm like, what is stop sign? So I tell him, and I was like, hey, we're going to do a movie called Stop Sign. He's like, what is that? I'm like, I don't know.
Oh my
We're just going
God.
to do a movie called Stop Sign. And so I get home and I'm praying, and over the course of days, I'm praying, I'm God, what is stop sign? You know, and when he showed me, he's like, you're going to do a movie on spousal rape. And I'm like, what is spousal rape? Like,
Right.
how can people get raped?
Yeah.
So it's funny because people think that's something I was aware of. I didn't even know what that was. And I was like, spousal rape. So I get a book. I got this book called Rape in Marriage. And I started reading on it. And I was like, wow. And I prayed and I was like, God, why do you want me to have a movie on spousal rape? Is it to just bring awareness? What is the goal of it? And when he showed me, it's to really show the flaw behind the culture of rape and why there is that culture, and to really start speaking on the mindsets behind the abuser, the mindsets behind the victim, why they stay silent, and why this is something that, you know, it's literally formed its own culture. And so I was like, okay, we're gonna do this project. So my whole life, every single thing I do is like, because it works. You know, for me, I encountered God very early in life. And so I don't play with the voice of God. When he tells me to do something, I know that is, because when I wrote this book, after writing the book, I started preaching at church.
See, wow.
So I am very diligent with his voice, because it's like, you tell me to do this, I know it is going to bring me to a version of myself I haven't even met yet. And so I just believe in that. And I'm like, okay, let's do this. I'm a filmmaker. Sure, I'm going to make a film.
You never did it before.
I've never did this before. And it's so amazing because right now, a friend of mine who is working on a TV series, but she's doing it through Issa Rae's her production. Like, she has her YouTube channel, where they, like, you know, she executive produces different shows. And so she reached out to me. She's like, hey, I want you to be a producer on the show. I was like, sure. What,
Wow.
you know, even though I'm like, I'm like, yeah, let's do it. You know, because I read the scripts for the different like episodes, and I'm like, oh, I think this is going to be a really good project. And so a lot of times you don't even know what you have the ability to do until you just start. And so I, you know, believe in that.
Oh my God. Yo, yeah. I was like, I mean, yeah, this is great. I just didn't know that you did all that.
Yeah, there's a lot I just didn't even know I could do.
Wow. What? Yeah.
Until you get in the mode.
Man, that's so cool. Oh, well, okay. So I know that, and I love this. I love this about you. It's like, if I look at what I know about what you've accomplished so far in your life, right? I can see, okay, you're a pastor. You've done, you know, you've started a book that you never did before.
Right.
Even a film.
Yeah.
Which is becoming a full feature.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what you call it. Okay. But I'm noticing that all these things actually have a lot in common.
Yeah.
Like there's a central theme to all this.
And that's why I call myself just a communicator with a message of faith, hope, and love. And I believe in each of those very things, because I think love in itself has been diluted to be a feeling instead of a personality. You know, when even the Bible talks about love is patient, love is kind, love seeks the truth, you know, love endures all things. And so it is who you become. And when I think of love is for justice, because if love seeks the truth, then the truth is for, you know, that's justice in itself. And so everything I do, it really encompasses faith, hope, and love. Where are we communicating hope? Are we, you know, how is this connected to faith? How is this connected to love as a personality? And so even with the film, the vision that God gave me with filmmaking was to use film to communicate truth and fight injustice. And so the projects that keep coming up are things that are against what is wrong in society, and how do we use such a powerful tool as film to actually bring those things up and show people that, okay, we hear it's almost like, you know, the pain of what's going on, and now how do we address it? And so they all are around that same theme. Yeah.
So faith, hope, and love.
Yeah.
Wow. How do you for people who are looking for that, what do you like? What would you? I guess doing all these things that you're doing is your way of helping these people. That is.
Yeah, because my life, I always believe that we should live for something greater than us, and so I dedicate my life to that mission, and I tell people I will live for this, I will die for it, because it's you see when you see the pain that goes on in society, and everyone is looking for that. Everyone is looking for hope in humanity. People are looking for love in its authentic nature and not this diluted sense of the word, and faith, like something to believe in, and why should we believe in this? And so it's my life's mission. That is the one thing because I've understood that is why God put me on this earth. And so it is what I go after with everything in me. And so sometimes people will meet me and they're just like, why are you so passionate about this or passionate about that? I'm like, no, we cannot be blind to what's going on. Like a lot of times I see, like, we have, you have like the hurricanes happening, or you have so you have natural disasters and you have personal disasters where you have racism and all kinds of things. And I've noticed like people are very, obviously we want to show that we are a voice to these things and we want to talk about it on social media. And then there is this I see this pressure on individuals everyone to answer in some manner. But I always I believe that if we are all who we are called to be, we would answer every problem if we own who we are called to be and not just waiting for things to happen for us to react. Because if I move, I've met people that have been racist. It didn't bother me. I would just I'm like, oh, hi, how are you? How are you doing? Because that is one person who, just by that contact, they could think differently, so if we all embrace who we are called to be, I think that it answers a lot of things in society without us waiting to be reactive people that when something happens, then we react and say, oh, let me go fight this battle. But no, if we just embrace our identities, our callings, then that in itself will be an answer to so many things. Like this right now, Think Alpha. There are people that are going to watch this and it's going to spark something in them.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that's so beautiful, and not just like waiting for things to happen, but being proactive with how we live
and
life.
Going out there
and go
exactly. Yeah. So you're saying that people who take offense and stuff like that, you're saying somewhere they're just being reactive.
Oh, I think it's different ways. I feel like we have been accustomed to be very reactive people, and we are reactive for a short period of time. We are reactive with the trend. And so, because I've seen people where, and these are real issues. So I'm never taking away from this is a real problem going on. But I think that we are so reactive to trends. So we put a hashtag out there. Then if you don't put a hashtag, I'm offended at you. But then after 2 weeks, I'm back to my normal life. And I forget about any hashtags until something comes up again. And I look at that and I'm like, why are we so reactive as people? Because if in my daily life, and I'm owning who I'm supposed to be on this earth, I think it's more powerful than just putting a hashtag just to validate your opinion that I care. I care by living a life for that cause in a different way.
Wow.
Because I don't think everyone can fight the same battles. It's just the same thing where, I might not be able to, when the Hurricane Harvey happened, I might not be able to go to Texas because I might be working on a project here, but I can, we can support in different ways. You can financially help someone. But I think that as a society, I've noticed this so much. We are just so reactive, and it's such a temporary time. Sometimes I really just watch people, like I do this for fun. Like I would just watch someone who makes a lot of noise, and like noise in terms of being offensive towards other people, and I watch them once the trend dies.
See what they say. And
like they're back in like a party or something talking about crazy stuff, and I'm like, really?
Can't take that
really?
serious.
How can I take you seriously?
Yeah.
So I just think that if as people we really own who we're called to be, then we see how that answers to everything in little ways. So.
Wow, that's interesting you said, because that I like to say that that's how I am. We have so many issues come up all the time. It's like there's one,
there's
and
the
then
ones
as
we
that
know,
ends,
there's the ones that are popular, there's the ones that are not popular, and it's like if we're really people that are just like, you're gonna die because you can't stretch yourself that far. Because even when I was talking to someone, and when the hurricane hit hit Texas, and that was it, I mean, obviously any kind of that was hard, because then you're seeing what's going on with people. And I was telling someone, I'm like, are you aware that there was also a hurricane that happened in Asia? There was a hurricane that happened in my country, in Nigeria. I mean, not a hurricane, but there was a flood that happened in my country. There was a mudslide that happened. So if we only react to what is popular media, then do we really care? Because if you really do have that heart for people, then you would look at it from a very broad perspective. And of course, we are our brother's keepers. I always support, because even with at the church, we're getting supplies and all that stuff to support the different whatever we have access to help and support that. And so the pastors are doing that, and the whole community came together, and we're like, okay, yes, let's figure out. But it just. And so when I talk about this, people think that I'm saying, oh, we should not be,
right.
But I'm like, that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that we have to have a lifestyle of giving. We have to have a lifestyle of, I support, like, this is who I am. I'm not just waiting for something to happen. My life, what I'm doing with my daily life is an answer to disaster.
Like, like you're living, you're living it.
Exactly.
And what's interesting about what you say is that, there's been times when with certain people that I've come across, I've been challenged for this exact thing you're saying. And what it is I tell people, look, to me, the best way I know to make a difference is to make continue to make the difference I'm making, continue to grow my reach,
exactly,
grow my own income so that I can use it, for things like that in general.
Exactly.
That's like, to me, that's the best way to do it. And yeah, it's interesting how what happens is there's like a glorification of, I'm out and I'm posting it and this and that, and then you look bad if you don't.
And we rarely take action. That's what even I told someone, I'm like, even when we post things like pray for this city, I'm like, no, pray before you post it. Before you tell people to pray, actually take the time to pray, because then we become this robotic, people. And I'm like, we don't even understand the impact it has in our daily lives, because we just become, we lose sense of just this consciousness of why am I doing this and what am I doing? Because I remember one time I saw this is when, what happened? What city? I can't remember what city. This I think it was when Hurricane Irma or something came up in Florida, yeah. And so this is real life, and so this comes up. This lady is at she's at the Chick-fil-A drive-thru or something, and so they're talking about Hurricane Irma, and she's laughing. She's talking to friends. She's ordering food, and she's posting, pray for Florida, and they're joking and they're laughing about something else, and they're like, girl, when are we going to go to Vegas and something? And I'm just like, listening to the conversation, I'm like, wait, did they just post pray for Florida? And they're talking about vacation in Vegas and and I'm like, this is how disconnected we've become as people, where we are living for, I want people to understand that, let me be, if a situation comes up, it's an image. It's just this perception of life. And I'm like, no, it's so disconnected, and it becomes like puppets. Just, let's see if this happens. Let's see how they react and how long they react for. Because I would look at her and I'm like, do you realize what just happened right now?
Yeah.
But I don't know.
That's so, yeah. And I don't think it's getting any better.
No, I don't. I think so.
It's getting worse and worse. Yeah, it's something that we ought to deal with, and that's why I know that leadership is needed. Like we need leaders more now than ever.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's a tricky situation. I'd say that. But what about you? Like, what about you brought you to the point? Because I know you said you've been able to listen early, to God. And I feel like what I'm doing now is, wow, I'm on purpose.
Yeah.
And I had back then, but no, this is a little different. This is very different. And this is happening to me at like 28. to be honest with you. So, like, what did you go through to get to the point where you're now, living this kind of
I mean,
direction?
even coming to this country, my mom, I remember because I was 16 when I was going to, because at that point I graduated high school, and it was in Nigeria.
Yeah.
And so the whole family, it made sense to go to London, because London is like a 6-hour flight from Lagos, Nigeria. And I remember at 16, I remember hearing from the Lord, and he told me that you're going to go to America, and America you will conquer for me. And so I was like, okay, God, I'm going to America. And and so I told my mom, and my mom was just like, I mean, my brothers were out here, but my mom wasn't too comfortable with the idea, because it was like her only girl, you're going to the States, you're really young, but I was always more advanced than my years. So I was like, Mom, you don't have to worry about that. And so I remember it was this whole thing that she was contemplating, and I remember a pastor came to her and told her, whatever she tells you, just agree and just go with that. So even coming to this country,
like as in your mom,
yeah, to my mom, told my mom whatever I told her, she should agree. Got it. And so when I was like, hey man, so my mom wasn't too comfortable with it, but she trusted the voice of God that speaking to me, and she was like, you know what, I guess this is going to be the move. So even coming to this country, it was led by the voice of God. But it started at 9 years old, and I talked about that in the book a little bit. But literally at 9, I remember one day I was in my room, and I felt this presence in the room, and I was terrified because it wasn't a scary, it wasn't like a scary feeling, but I was terrified because I was aware that someone was in the room, but I couldn't see them. But it was so overwhelming, and I'm like, someone is definitely in the room. And so I was like, who is there? And no one is talking, and I'm like, what is going on right now? And so I go over to my mom's room, and she was just like, oh, what are you doing? I'm like, oh no, I just came to sleep here. The moment I laid on her bed, it felt like she went in a coma. She was not responding to me. She was like,
your
out.
mom?
My mom, like she was not, like, just cold. And I was like, why isn't she? I was like, what is going on? So the same presence comes in the room. She is not responding. And I was like, okay, this is a little scary. So then I take the blankets and cover my face. And so I closed my eyes, and I could still see the room the same way. And I was like, why am I still seeing the room with my eyes closed? Then I open my eyes. I see a man sitting down by her fridge. And then I cover my eyes. I see the same man sitting by her fridge. I was like, oh my gosh, what is happening? So for some reason, this is real crazy story.
Oh man.
Some reason, the only thing I knew to ask was, God, if this is you, let wind go through my ankles. And right there on the bed, there was like this gush of wind that whoosh.
Was the window open?
No.
Yo, that's
nothing.
Crazy.
So the moment that happened, I was like, I felt at peace. I was like, okay, this is God. And the weird thing was that the man who was sitting down looked like my late dad from pictures, but I was like, what is that? So the little girl in me was like, oh, God looks like my father, And so the man stands up. He walks over to my mother, and he put something in her hand. And I was like, who are you? What are you doing here? And he was speaking a language I could not understand at all. It sounded like autotune.
Oh, really?
If I think of it now, it just sounded like it had an echo in itself. And I could not understand a word he said. And then he disappears. The moment he disappears, my mom wakes up. And I was like, oh my gosh, Mom, something happened. She was like, are you sure we're not dreaming? Like, huh? I was like, this is not a dream. This happened. She's like, Stephanie, go back to bed. Maybe it's some of this movies you're watching.
Go down.
She's like, I was like, oh my gosh. I'm like, something happened. And that day, so we were going through some financial difficulties. That day, she randomly finds the paperwork to an old account of my father. And I was like, oh, maybe that's what the man put in your hand and da-da-da-da. And she was just like, no, Stephanie. Then a pastor, I thank God for pastors. And a pastor called my mom, and he said there was an angelic visitation that happened in your house last night. And my mom was like, my daughter was telling me about some man who appeared, disappeared. I was like, Mom, I'm telling you, there was someone here, and it was God. And in my mind, I was like, it was God, and God looked like my dad, and da. So right there, I was like, oh, I met God, and he looks like my father. And then I started hearing the voice, and then I heard someone said it was not like it was not he. I heard a voice say it was not me, it was an angel. And I was like, who said that? Like, what is that? And that's when I started hearing God's voice, because I was like, wait, was that my voice? Was that my hero? Who is talking? And then when he was just speaking, like I could just hear, and then he went in detail and said it was an angel who came in the likeness of your father, so you're not afraid. But that was my first like encounter with that, and I was like, God, so do you look like my father or not? Because I was so young, so that young mind, it was easy to learn, it was easy to ask questions, and so at a very young age, he would tell me things that would happen the next day. I started having dreams, I started having visions. And I would see, so my mom would travel, and I would call her because I could see where she is, and I'm like, who she's with, and I'm like, hey Mom, there's someone you're gonna meet tomorrow, and the person's gonna say this, say no, da, and it was happening just like that, and I was like, God, this is so cool, And
it's like you have power.
Yeah, I was like, oh, this is really cool. But the thing, what the passion started is because at that young age in Nigeria, the churches I would go to, they had this message of hell, and if you don't do this, you're going to hell, and hellfire, and all the hell, just what the hell. And having a personal relationship, and my relationship with God was so much about love and purpose, and understanding why I've called you, why I formed you. And I had this passion to really talk about God's love. It's not this hell message. This is terrifying, And I'd seen how a lot of people, whether it was prophets or people that heard the voice of God, it seemed manipulated, and it always made people feel like they couldn't hear that for themselves, so they needed you. And I'm like, no, everyone, actually, God desires people to have relationship with him. That's the whole point of him dying, And so that was my passion at a young age. I'm like, God, I really want to like talk about you and really show people that you are this God of love and what you're really for. And so there were so many questions I had, and so many things I've had about things that, at the time I just heard all this judgment. And I was like, it's never about that. And I remember even when I found out that my uncle, a close uncle of mine, actually was the person behind my father's death, who called the assassins to murder him and to collect wealth. But I bring that up because when that happened, I remember that I wasn't angry, and I wanted to be angry that I wasn't angry. And I was like, why? And I went back to God, and I'm like, why am I not angry at this? Like, this is messed up, and da. Like, why would he do this? And what he had told me is that to hold resentment towards him was to believe a lie about him. And I'm like, what does that even mean? And what he was showing me was that your uncle is not a murderer. He had jealousy, and his jealousy caused him to act in a way that was not true to his identity and who I called him to be.
It's just
but I bring that up because it just showed the love of God. Even in someone who is a murderer, he's talking about redemption. He's talking about this is not really who they are. This is what they did out of their brokenness. So he's also a victim of his own brokenness. And I was just like, but that is so messed up. And he was like, no, he will have, every action has consequence. But the reason that you're not angry is because to stay in this place of offense, it will be unnatural to who you are, because then you're agreeing that someone is who they are not in me. And I was just like, wow, God, like this. But those are things I would not think of, because, it's just like, no, God punish you. You're going to hell. But stuff like that really brought me back to this desire and passion to communicate in any way, whether it's books, whether it's film, whether it's speaking, to communicate who God is, what God is for, and just, his person. So, yeah.
That must be why you said a little bit ago, you said, when someone's being racist towards you, you don't really, it doesn't really affect you.
It doesn't bother me. Like I've met people that would just weird stuff. And because I always look at it, no human being is evil from a place of wisdom. Like you can never be be offensive, be abusive, be whatever from a place of wisdom. It's always from a place of ignorance. And so for me to be angry or to take what you said in with offense, then I'm agreeing with your ignorance. I'm saying that, you know what, it's like I'm also being ignorant, you know. And so when I look at it, I'm like, you just have some ignorance. That's all, you know. And
You know, that sounds hilarious.
You're not gonna waste my time with my anger.
Not
You know,
on you.
Not on you, because you're just coming from a place of you lack wisdom in this matter.
Right. Yeah, it's true.
You know, because
yeah.
for someone to get me, you have to be really close to me, and because I can only be angry, truly angry, when I have an expectation of someone. And the only reason I'll have an expectation of someone is because of our relationship. And so if we have a close relationship and there's someone I know you to be, you going against that and hurting me, that's what would really make me angry, because there's an expectation I had of you. And ultimately, my biggest expectation should be who people are in God. And it's knowing that you can still get to that person later on in life. And so I don't take off. People have said some weird things, like you'll be hurt by it, like, man, that kind of like, you know, especially if you're feeling a little insecure or something in the day. It's like, oh my gosh, that kind of hurt. But but it's not something I'll be like, man, this person is it's like, no, they're just, you know, a little ignorant, that's all.
So if I'm holding a grudge against somebody, so what about that?
If you're holding a grudge, why?
Well, I don't know that I don't feel like I've really held any grudges, but if it's someone who has.
No, if what I'm saying, but if someone is holding a grudge, like against someone racist?
Against maybe someone who, I know where you're going with this. This is great. This is great. I guess what I'm saying is, I agree with what you're saying, because for me, people ask like, you're so quick to let go of stuff, or you're so quick to, you know, to release whatever feeling you have. And what I tell them is that, well, it's because when people do things, they do things that make sense for them where they're at mentally, like where they're at mentally, where they're at emotionally, wherever they're at.
Exactly.
So who am I to judge where they're at? So if I see something that's happening where they're at and I'm where I'm at, I'm not saying it's better or anything like that, but if I see that, I see it. Number one is I see the action for what it is enough to know that it's where that person's at.
Exactly.
That's number one. So why would I get upset if it's what makes sense for them? It's not necessarily that they're trying to hurt me, not necessarily, but it's because of whatever feeling it is that they might have.
And I always tell people, you have to, like, we always have to learn how to see ourselves on both ends. You have to learn how to see yourself as the one who could be the wise one and the one who could be ignorant. Because there are things that it would be foolish for me to say that I've never hurt someone. But I didn't hurt someone intentionally. And so whatever their mindset was, I didn't have that. And so when you can see yourself in both aspects and know that this pain, whatever pain I caused you, was not because it was intentional, or it was because I had this whole, you know, plan in my mind, you know, and when we are able to see ourselves from both, you know, both angles, then we can understand that, you know what, you're just not, you'll be fine, you know, eventually. You know, we'll figure this out.
You'll be
but that's why, like, it's not like what you said is so perfect, because a lot of times we like to hold on to pain because then it gives us this feel of control over the situation. But it's really just destroying you, because then you're controlled by that pain. It's like the person comes around you, you start acting weird or whatever, and it's like, for what? You know, it's not worth it.
So what would you have to say? Because what I say to people is learn to forgive, right? Learn to forgive. And I'd take it even a step further and say that I think I'm so much more willing to be forgiving of others and compassionate of others because I'm that way to myself. Like if I make a big mistake, you know, I might feel the shame or whatever, but I'll work through it. But eventually I'll forgive myself. And, you know, and I'll ask, and I'll have compassion on myself, and I'll ask God for guidance. Like, just God, I want to do better, you know? And if you treat yourself that way, of course, you're going to do that for other people.
And that's key, because even like if we look at it from a biblical perspective, when it says love your neighbor as you love yourself, a lot of times we look at that from the angle of, you know, love, like from a positive angle, but people don't understand that if if you also treat yourself negatively, then that's what you're going to give to other people. So if you're not quick to forgive yourself, if you're not quick to just understand, like, you know what, I made a mistake, that's okay, let me let it go, we can't give that to other people. You know, we're going to have this, you know, high expectation that we give ourselves, and when we fail to meet it, we beat ourselves down. And so that's why we're so quick to judge other people, beat other people down, because it's like, oh, you should have done better, because that's how we look at ourselves in the mirror. And so it always comes back to that place of self. You know, learn to pace yourself, learn to be okay if things don't go your way, learn to be okay if you make a mistake, learn to see it as a lesson, because then you can give that to the person next to you.
What would you like? How can people learn that? Because there's a lot of people.
Yeah, I think, you know, I believe it starts off with this expectation we have to ask ourselves why. I think the problem is that we like just why everything, why the expectations that we have of ourselves, why, what is behind that? Why do we have this high expectation of in a time period? You know, because we can say, like, for example, success is an expectation you can have, let's say financial success, right? And that's great. But then we say, you know, I need to do this by 30. Why 30?
Why 30?
You know, what is it about it? Do you feel like you'll be a failure to society if you don't make it by 30? Do you feel like, and then again, to really analyze what you're after, because if it's okay, I need to do this by 30, then you miss the journey of what you're building. You miss the journey of what you're doing in that process, like what you're learning, what you're experiencing, and you've put all this pressure into one goal. Then what happens when you meet the goal? Do you know, what's the next thing? But I think that expectations are great, but we have to, the time period that create these expectations, why that time frame? Why not live to experience each moment? Give your best, be your best self all the time, because even when it comes to someone hurting someone, it's always this like time frame of, why would they do that at this place in our relationship? Or why would they do that to me? And And it's like, give people time to grow. Why do we put this high demand on people in a short time period? You know, oh, I can't believe they did this to me, and But it's always like, the one thing I see that is very common is like, it's always within like this time frame of like, oh, you can't, you know, you did this to me and I trusted you and this, and you shouldn't do this. But it's like, we don't give people the chance of time to say that, you know what, you're worth the time to grow. You're worth the time to experience something else. You're worth the time for me to learn you better. But we just say, you know what, I can't, if it didn't make it here, then it's done, you know. But I think people should really go into the questions of why. Why are you doing that? What is your intention behind that? Why can't you forgive the person? You know, why can't you believe that they can learn or they can grow? Why? I think when we go back to the whole questions with society, we don't ask why anymore. We just do things. We just get offended. We don't, you know, we just react. And we're not asking why. Okay, why am I doing this right now? Why am I telling people to pray? Did I pray? You know, why am I, you know, so I think going back to the questions of why am I holding this grudge? Why? You know, so I think if just that question of reason, what does this even mean to me? And that there's a lot of healing that just comes from that one question.
That one question, yeah. What are some areas in which you feel like you've healed?
Healing, you know, let me go back to the memory bank.
You have to remember that one.
No, you know what? I think one of the things, healing. I think one of the things weirdly was probably even with relationships with men.
Okay.
And it's so weird, but it's weird and it's not, because not knowing my father, you know, people always talk about people having daddy issues.
Man.
But you never know how you have daddy issues, you know,
until you never know how it manifests.
Until you wonder, oh wait, I do have some daddy issues. Damn. I think that because it came from a place, because I was like, oh, there's daddy issues and wanting to have someone you call daddy, and yeah, it's just messy. Messy. But I think for me, not knowing not even getting the chance to know him. And which is I saw the good and the interesting thing. So my first experience of a father was with God. It's like, God is my father and all that stuff. And it's beautiful. But the other thing is that you don't see God. You know, right. It's not like we're just in heaven like, hey, hey dad, what's up? You know, we're going for lunch, or something. So that the ability to experience what relationship was with a man was hard for me. And even with my brothers, like we're close and I love them, but I recognize how hard it would be to just sit, like go for dinner with my brother and just sit on the table. I'm like, what?
Really?
Why are we here? Like, I'm like, I'll be in my mind. They didn't know this, but it was so hard for me. In my mind, I'm like waiting for this dinner to be over.
To do what?
Nothing, just to be by myself or to hang out with friends or something.
Well,
or
female friends.
Yeah, and I would love being with my brothers if we were with a group of people, right? If we're just like so when it came to an intimate place, it was hard for me to just sit down and look each other in the eye and talk about life. And I'm like, this is so awkward. Why is this so awkward? And I never recognized that, because even I recognized how in college, I was never interested in having a boyfriend. And at first I thought it was just my control issues. I was like, no, you're not going to call me your girlfriend. Who do you think you are?
Exactly.
Just trying to have ownership. No. And so at first I was like, maybe it's just, this could be control issues or something. But it was really from that place of when the moment a guy would tell me something like, let's go have breakfast. And I'm like, oh, I'm over it. Oh my gosh.
That's what you do, Stephanie.
Right, it is. But see, I didn't recognize it was daddy issues.
Okay.
So in my
This
mind,
is awesome.
I was like, oh my gosh. So he woke up and I'm the first thing he thought about, he wants to have breakfast and look me in the eye and just talk about what? So I just used to like, let's just go out. Let's just be around people.
Yeah.
And that intimate place, I never recognized that was a hard place for me. And so that was something where I was like, God, what is, what was that? And I think it came back. I didn't recognize that I had a fear. And it was something hidden to myself. I had a fear that the same way my mother loved my father so much, and having someone been taken away from your life, like murder. And I didn't know that I had a fear that I could, because naturally I am a lover. Naturally, like the things in my, how I am to friends, that's who naturally I am.
Yeah, I can feel that.
So I never knew that my fear was, if I gave that to a man, what happens if he was killed? I didn't know that I had that fear. And so I never wanted to have someone that intimate with, and you're gone. You just bye. I'm like, oh no, that would just crush my whole life. And so I didn't realize that it was something I was running away from, and not that, I didn't know how to have that closeness. So even with my brothers, my fear was that I don't want to get so close to you and you're taken away from me. I don't want to know what that feels like. I never knew that. Because with friends, I love my friends so much, but then there's always that, you always have this thing like, okay, everybody just goes to different places, but when someone has such a great impact in your life, I didn't want to feel like what it was to let it go. And when I learned just that element of, it's okay, even if that happens, it's better to experience authentic moments and true moments with people than to run away because you don't want, because it's one thing when you are pouring into people, and it's another thing to receive being poured into, because then you live an impact in my life.
Yes.
And that was my fear. I could give myself all day, but to give someone access to me in an intimate way,
to receive love,
then that means you have a hold of me that I didn't want. I was like, no. So growing up, I was like, no, I don't want a relationship. And I never knew where that was coming from. So that was something I healed from. And I was like, okay, God, we're good. We're Gucci.
We're good. Wow.
Yeah, but that was mine.
From the conversation, first off, thank you for sharing that, because that required you to be very vulnerable to do that. So thank you. And I would say that, like, in my years of just having conversations with people, especially women, that's come up quite a bit. The ability to receive love.
Yeah.
Right? And how that affects your relationship. Because here's what I noticed is that your relationship with your parents pretty much dictates how you see the world, how you see men, how you see women. So what I've learned is, like, if for a woman, if you have a strained relationship or estranged relationship with your mother, it affects your identity. And as a woman, if you have a strained relationship with your father or an estranged relationship with your father, it affects how you view men.
Yeah.
Right? And so it's just so important that you had to touch on that, because that affected me as well. For me, not exactly like yours, but that happened with me and my father, which affected my identity as a man.
Wow.
And I had to, there's so much I had to do and heal, and I had conversations with him for that. Have you had conversations at all with women about this? Because they need it.
Not as much, and it's something that I'm interested. I don't know. I'm like, either I do a book about that or something. I don't know what it will be, but just knowing how you can be so detached from what that reality is. And people always wondered, but how can you have such a beautiful relationship with God and you're having a hard time with men? I'm like, no, God will never leave you.
right.
He would never.
Exactly.
He would never leave me. I would die and I'm still with him.
You know that.
And so it was such a different dynamic. But when I do women that are like close to me, and when I see that same pattern of sabotaging your relationships without recognizing it, just like not even, because I would meet great guys, and even though I'm not a dater, but I'm just not
I'm not at it.
No, I'm just saying.
So you gotta put a ring on it, huh?
No, I'm not like, because obviously women have intuition. Like when you know, Like when you don't know, you don't know. Like if it's just wrong, it's just wrong. It's not.
Kim, is that true?
We have great intuition. Like, why am I here? Why am I here? So
This is great. This is awesome.
But what's it called? But yeah, but there were people that I met were great, that were just like great people, and I never even gave them the time of day per se, because they wanted to have like breakfast.
It's just breakfast, Stephanie.
I know. Or they wanted to do like I remember this one guy, and it was like we met for a short period of time. Really great guy. And so Thanksgiving comes, and he was like, "Oh my gosh, you should come." I used to love like house hopping for Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
And he was like, "Oh, you should come to my family's for Thanksgiving." So in my mindset was, "Oh, house hop." Like this is great. Like you're inviting a bunch of people. We're all coming to your house for Thanksgiving. And I go there, and I'm like, I'm waiting. I'm like, "Oh, where are our friends?"
You and your friends.
I was like, "Where's everybody?" And it's his family. I'm like, "Wow, there's not enough seats." Definitely, it looks like all the seats are full.
Oh my god!
And it was a great time. Like it was cool. Like they had like stuff. It was just so interesting. And so afterwards, and then we do like this karaoke thing. And I was like, "That's great." And then right there, he's talking about family and all this stuff. And this was like right after college, and he was such a great guy. But it was just that thing where I was just like, in my mind, I was like,
it ain't it.
I was like, "Oh, you're trying to be in a relationship? Oh, no, it's not me.
Yeah.
I'm not the one you're looking for, man." But that was one person that when I started putting the dots together, I remember, I was like, wow, that was, because he was such, there are people, he just had but I just didn't know how to receive that. And I was like, you know what, you just stay over there, all right? And I'm gonna be here.
Right there where you are.
Stay right. Because I remember one time, true story, this happened like a few years ago. There was this guy, and it scared me to the point he didn't even say anything. I just wanted to run and cry. But he had this, and that's when I realized, I'm like, something is not right. But this was like years ago, and his presence just had like this embodiment of love. Like, I was just like, he just looks like a lover. And
that's cool.
And when what scared me one day he, because I can't even remember, how did we meet? I can't even remember. I think it was a mutual friend or something. And we were talking, he was telling me how he wanted to go into real estate or something like that. And so he was trying to show me a project, something on his phone. And so I looked at his phone before time, I guess. So I see my photo on his
like screensaver,
on his screen,
wallpaper.
on his wallpaper. So I acted like I didn't see it.
Wait.
So at first I was like, wait, what?
You were already dating?
We were mutual friends. Just
friends,
like this, cool guy. Like so I acted like I didn't see anything.
Just you on?
Yeah, I was like, there's nothing. I was like, didn't see that. And so he opens it. I was like, oh, that's so great! Wow! I just played it off. I'm like, I didn't see nothing. So one day, someone told me, he was like, hey, he was looking for you because we were at this event or something, and I didn't know he was there. So they're like, oh, he was looking for you. So when I saw him approaching me, I almost started crying, and I wanted to run because I was like, I don't want it. 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 And I was like, God, I don't want it. I don't know. I'm like done. And that moment, I go home and I was like, what is that? Like, why? I didn't even know what he wanted to say. I was just like, no, I don't want, no. And that's when I recognized that something is not right.
Something's up.
And that's when the healing process began. And now we're cool people. One time, I actually did, like, we went out for lunch or something, but it was just not it for me. But it was, I could,
at least y'all are cool though, right?
We're cool. Like, I could receive sitting down with him and just like, like having a good conversation or whatever. But I was like, nah, not it. But yeah, but healed, check. Okay.
That is so cool. So what would you say, like, because I don't think you knew we were going to get into this at all.
No.
I mean, I didn't either. I was like, ooh, that's in this spot.
Yeah.
Right there. But what would you say, like, there are lots of women, men, of course, on our end, men, a lot of women who they're not even aware of this.
Yeah.
So, I'm sure that, when they hear this, they're going to be like, that kind of sounds like me.
Yeah.
What would you advise?
I would say to pay attention to your patterns, because the truth is in the pattern.
Right.
Because if I paid attention to my pattern when it came to just those kind of relationships, I would have noticed it sooner. But I didn't pay any attention to it. I just thought like, oh, no, Stephanie, it's just not your thing. You're just not this. You're just not interested. You're focusing on other things. You're purpose driven. Yeah. But that was not it.
Not it at all.
So I think that we just have to pay more attention to our patterns and pay attention to what you're attracted to. Because I will be attracted to men who are emotionally unavailable. Because I'm like, oh, this is good. This works for me. We can, this is just perfect. Don't call, I'll call you when I call you me when you call me. We're good, So when you pay attention to those things, why are you attracted to someone who's emotionally available? Or, why do you easily, sabotage relationships? Is it can't always be their fault. Something, you're the common, factor in the case. Right. So really just to pay attention to that and go back to that question, why? Why am I doing this? Why is this going on? And then for me, it really just came back to that fear of losing someone that had an impact on me. But yeah.
Dang. Words of the wild. And she is so beyond her years. This is so great. Kim, weren't you like, man, don't ever tell me that. Did you say something like that?
What?
Oh, don't tell me I'm beyond my years.
Well, I mean, no, it's a compliment.
It's a compliment?
The way you're phrasing it now.
Okay, good. I was hoping so. Well, no, that's great. Wow. Man, okay, we touched on a lot.
Yeah.
Okay, if it's cool with you, I'm gonna have you on multiple episodes because we haven't even touched the surface of what we can touch on. Here's what I love. Here's what I want to acknowledge you for. Number one is your willingness to surrender. And what do I mean is that you're surrendering, you're so willing to surrender to the greater good, to surrender to the voice of God that comes in and kind of jolts you out of your seat,
Yeah.
But more importantly, you're surrendering to be a vessel.
Yeah.
Be a vessel for the good,
Yeah.
for the good of the greater good. And thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for that.
This is amazing.
Yeah. And the vulnerability that comes with that, because it also felt really easy to be able to go there. And I knew that you would. I knew that you
And I
would.
think for me, even with preaching, like I told myself, I cannot speak to people if I'm not open.
Yeah.
So even I remember preaching, I've talked about pornography. I've talked about all kinds of things because I think that there is this, we have this concept of branding people.
Oh.
And it's such a false idea because you can only brand products. You can't brand human beings. We're alive. We breathe. We have emotions. We have feelings. We have fears. We have, So I think that the concept of a person representing this brand of perfection is false. It actually takes away from the truth of life. And so one thing I said, if I'm going to be someone who speaks in any form of leadership, I'm going to be honest about my life. And so now I'm at a place where you can ask me whatever, and I'm just going to say how I feel about it or what it is and pertain to my life, because that's the truth of who we all are. We all have things we struggle with and stuff like that.
We all do. That's for sure. Yeah, and I know that I strive to be that every day, and I admire you for that. Like that's because living that's transparency.
Yeah.
And being transparent, man. It really makes you think. It makes you. It definitely builds my character being transparent because it's like, okay, would I be willing to talk about this? No. If the answer is no, I can't be doing this, man.
Yeah.
I cannot be doing this.
So
I cannot
true.
be doing this.
So true.
So that's amazing. That transparency, that's huge. Thank you. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
So what are you up to now? What are you excited about now?
Right now, excited about my second book. Really excited about that book. And excited about the film because that's just going to be a whole new ball game with a feature project. And just life and new things coming up.
Okay. Yeah, you're a busy woman. That's for sure.
Yeah.
I know I'm busy. You're really, really busy. Yeah. Okay, cool. And so other than that, I would say in closing, if you were to give some parting piece of guidance, what would that be?
It would really sum up to sum this whole thing up. I believe it would come back to the place of every individual walking in the truth of their calling, in the truth of their authentic nature, and being true to who they are, what they're passionate about, and giving it their all. Because if we are not living beyond ourselves, we're not living. And so, yeah.
Oh, man. That was awesome. All right. Thank you once
again.
Thank you. It was
amazing.
Great.
We have a sign out. Think. Then you say alpha.
You say alpha? Is it because you're an alpha too? I forgot, guys. She's a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated.
Where can we find you?
Yeah, of course. Thanks. Thank you. So yeah, where can we find you?
Instagram is Stephanie Ike. That's IKE. And my website is stephanieike.com, and that will link to everything else.
Well, everything else, yeah. That's perfect.
Yeah.
Everything is all good. Hey, guys, make sure you get this book.
Yeah.
Moving forward.
Bam, bam, bam.
Close up.
Bam.
Bam. Hit them. Yeah, so we're going to have all the links, everything on the website, on the show notes. So
amazing.
we make show notes for every episode. So,
that's good.
Yeah, you get your own page and all that good
all
stuff.
right. Come on, show notes.
Come on. No, but thank you once again. Thank you.
That was
great.
good. Thanks.